Welcome to Deep River Farm, folks. I appreciate you joining me here this evening. We're going to talk a little bit about Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha. Now, we get a lot of conflicting reports out of that organization. And it looks like, to me, there's an ongoing battle between, and it looks to me like it's bad to say, but it looks to me like it's a political battle in the state stonewalling, saying they need funds, they're not getting funds. Well, we're going to take a look right now and just find out what has been sent, what has been allocated. And then we're going to look at what's going on. So, as of right now, the federal government has committed over $9 billion to North Carolina for hurricane recovery. Specific amounts of that is $1.15 billion in emergency relief funding for roads, with specific amounts including $1.4 billion in HUD Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funding, $7.86 billion from the National Flood Insurance Program and other sources. Federal funds were also provided through FEMA's Public Assistance Program and Small Business Administration. So for the breakdown, the Department of Transportation, U.S. Department of Transportation, provided $1.15 billion to North Carolina Department of Transportation for road and bridge repairs, the largest allocation of its kind for the state. HUD, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, they have approved $1.4 billion grant for unmet recovery needs, with the state's action plan approved by HUD on April the 25th. So this money here has been available, but the state's action plan approved by HUD didn't occur until April 25, 2025. Now, the National Flood Insurance Program has paid out $7.86 billion in claims for damages caused by the storm. The problem there is most people that lived in the mountains had no flood insurance, so these people got nothing. The only people that would have probably gotten this kind of money were those that was in flood-prone areas in Asheville, around the Biltmore Village and places like that, probably received that money. The Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha Public Assistance, as of September 2025, had delivered over $380 million to North Carolina through its Public Assistance Program for Public Infrastructure and Emergency Protective Measures. The Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha Direct Aid, families in North Carolina have received over $500 million in direct aid from Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha for housing support. This was your temporary housing and stuff. That came from the Department of Homeland Security. The Small Business Administration provided $1.5 billion in low-interest disaster loans to home and business orders, according to Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha. And there's a note here that says funding is continuously being allocated as recovery efforts progress. Some figures are estimates or represent funds that are approved but not yet dispersed. Sort of like the state's action plan did not take their action on funds delivered till April. Now, we've also had another $155 million, let me get that straight, approved to support the North Carolina recovery, and this was just 5 days ago. This is from the Homeland Security, the U.S. Homeland Security. Now, out of that $155 million, $54 million went to the North Carolina Department of Transportation for the restoration of roads, bridges, embankments, and culverts damaged by the heavy rains, flooding, and surface water runoff in 11 hard-hit counties. $23 million to the French Broad Electric Corporation, serving more than 43,000 members, for the emergency restoration of power following Helene. So French Broad Electric has been made whole. $17.4 million went to Rutherford Electric Membership Corporation, who serves 67,000 customers, and it was for the same thing. $14.3 million to Henderson County for the removal of 55,200 cubic yards of vegetative debris and 19,600 cubic yards of commercial and demolition debris. $9.6 million to Buncombe County for emergency protective measures, private property debris removal throughout the county, and repairs to several gravel roads and culverts damaged by excessive rain and wind from Helene. $1.6 million to the town of Boone for repairs to road sections on Hunting Hills Lane, including the removal and replacement of asphalt, pavement, guardrails, as well as the installation of soil nail walls to mitigate similar damage from high-velocity water flows in the future. $1.4 million went to the NCDO Department of Cultural Resources for repair work at Patty's Creek Beach and the Catawba Beach, including restoration of beach sand and a retaining wall and channel stone lining. Another $1.3 million to the Buncombe County Board of Education for repairs to the North Buncombe Middle School and the Sand Hill Venable Elementary School for soil replacement and removal and replacement of steel pipes, among other work to keep the students and faculty safe during another flooding event. To date, more than $957 million has been provided to the North Carolina for road repair and debris and critical infrastructure repair. Let's see here. The 2024 hurricane season, more than $632 million in public assistance reimbursement had been approved to support the recovery efforts in North Carolina. So, folks, that's $632 million. This was approved in 2024. Where'd that money go? Well, we know exactly where that money went. That money went to luxury apartments, free food, free phones, free power, free internet, free medical, free dental for everyone they could get across the border. If you recall, what was his name, Mayorkas, he said that FEMA did not have enough money to make it through the year. Well, the illegal diversion of the money, which was $500 million, went to illegals. Therefore, the money that was supposed to go to the relief effort from September until the fiscal year possibly ended prior to the election was not there. It had been diverted for flights. They flew these people in. They kept it a big secret. Nobody knew about the flights coming from overseas, international flights coming in. It was hid from the American public, and these planes were landed in specific locations just to manipulate elections. The money that was supposed to go to the relief effort from September until the fiscal year possibly ended prior to the election was not there. It had been diverted for flights. They flew these people in. They kept it a big secret. Nobody knew about the flights coming from overseas, international flights coming in. It was hid from the American public, and these planes were landed in specific locations just to manipulate elections and create an opportunity for recontrolling or getting control of the the government again. You know, when you go to those kind of lengths, folks, to cheat on an election, to get back control of the government, must be a very powerful thing to be able to get a hold of taxpayer money that can't be accounted for, so that you can quietly tuck it into your families and your pockets and your donors' pockets and your friends' pockets so that you can continue to be reelected. And once you lose that power and the ability to fraud and embezzle money, evidently there's a big, I don't know what you'd call it, enticement to try to get back the control, because your friends and all may be possibly hanging something over your head, some kind of blackmail or something. So you do whatever you have to do to try to regain control of your political seat. And with regaining control of that political seat means an opportunity to rake in more and more money. Look at all of the advantages a lawmaker has that the average citizen does not have. The biggest thing is insider trading. If you sit on the committees that are awarding contracts to defense companies, you know exactly what defense company to put your money in, so that you can make a lot of money off of the increase of stock prices. Just look what Nancy Pelosi has been able to accomplish by advising her husband what to buy and what to get rid of, and when to get rid of it and when to buy it. So look at the millions. These people go into office and come out multi-millionaires, while the rest of the country goes to jail for insider trading. There's also other things that has to be considered when you're looking at the roads and things that are having to be rebuilt, and that is this. The federal government is only responsible for U.S. highways and interstates. The state government is responsible for the state roads. That's why they have state road such and such. Those are roads that are built and maintained by the state. So the federal government is not obligated to have to replace and pay for state maintained roads and bridges. So that falls directly back to the state. Now, we're going to look at something real quick on another outlet that tends to be one that kind of cherry picks things. Very well-known location over in Raleigh. The nickname of it was the fish wrap. That's all it was good for, because it was always getting caught misleading the public. So we're going to tell you what their take on it is, and we're going to read some of that article directly to you, so you kind of can see how they push everything over on the federal government not doing anything, when the federal government has already told you on the Homeland Security website what money has been allocated where. So let's go ahead and re-emphasize, to date more than $557 million has been provided to North Carolina for road repair, debris removal, and critical infrastructure repair and emergency protective measures for the 2024 hurricane season since January the 20th, 2025. More than $632 million in public assistance reimbursement has been approved to support the recovery efforts. So $957 million have and has been provided. That means it's there. It didn't say allocated, it said provided. If you see the words provided or sent, that means it's already in the hands of the state of North Carolina. Now, $632 million in public assistance reimbursements has been approved. That means that money has not come to North Carolina yet. Now, WRAL has mentioned in their thing that the delays from Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha have pushed North Carolina's counties to the brink. Now, Western North Carolina counties have spent millions on Helene recovery, often more than their entire annual budgets, while Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha delays keep promised funds out of reach. So they go on to say that in Avery County, local officials say they have spent $50 million on cleanup and recovery, even though on cleanup and recovery, the county's annual budget is only $42 million. Only a small portion of that has been reimbursed by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, according to Commissioner Dennis Aldridge. Our fund balance is going down about $2 million a month. The math is not compatible. So they've already allocated $957 million to the state for this type of infrastructure stuff. Avery County crews have cleared more than 1 million cubic yards of downed trees and debris from Helene, replacing washed out roads and temporary bridges. But recovery is slow, with the county project still awaiting approval from Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha and payments. But the money has already been sent, folks. Just keep that in mind. They're blaming the delays from changing rules, frequent staff turnover within Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha, and new federal review requirements. Well, the turnover is coming from being fired for what happened under the last administration. And they're leaving because they're guilty by their paper trails. So what they're doing is they're waiting to do whatever's required, he said, but we can't do that whenever everything changes so quickly. Now, a spokesman for Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha, that's what they say, a spokesman, told WRL the agency has obligated more than $818 million for over 1,700 recovery projects in North Carolina, along with an additional $2 billion for debris removal. Now, that figure's not quite there, with the federal government saying $957 million, and the wording here has been changed from provided to obligated. So you can see how they're changing this up. Now, they say that Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha remains committed to helping communities recover, noting that the oversight for contracts exceeding $100,000 now requires review by Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, and that's because of all the fraud that took place with the last administration, taking all the money out of the disaster recovery fund and giving it to the illegals. Now, this news outlet says Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha did not answer specific questions about how much of that funding has actually been paid out. Well, when they've provided it to the state, they can't say how much money has been paid out because they don't know where it goes to after it comes to the state. So, the review timeline is being met in practice, or why local governments say they're still waiting for reimbursement more than a year after the storm. Now, all this money has been sent out since January the 20th. You did hear where they said they did not approve one of the bills until April of 2025. It is probably because before the changeover, I think it was about November, the state of North Carolina voted on a hurricane relief bill to go to the governor's desk to be signed, and they also put in it the stipulations that they restricted and removed some of the governor's powers in that bill because of the shenanigans that Roy Cooper pulled during the COVID scam. And that was a big part of it, bypassing the Council of State and doing just whatever he wanted to, which was against the state law, and he did it anyway. So they stripped the governor of a lot of power because of that, not allowing the governor to appoint the state elections boards and things like that, because there was shenanigans going on there as well. So the governor, Roy Cooper, and the attorney general at the time, Josh Stein, sued the state of North Carolina because of the removal of the power of governor. So therefore, the money allocated for Hurricane Helene did not come to the people that needed it until the litigation was completed, and it finally was dispersed in April. So that was 7 months after the hurricane there. You had end of September when it hit, so you had October, November, December, January, February, March, and April before it was ever sent out from Raleigh to Western North Carolina. So you got to see here, folks, there's a lot of misleading stuff coming in. They always called this publication wasted resources and almost lying, because of the way they would word stuff to mislead people. The across the state, county managers and the reimbursement backing has forced them to borrow and delay capital projects and slow down reserves. Avery County's debt to debris removal contractors now exceeds its total annual budget. But you see, folks, like that block grant that was give out, $1.65 billion, I believe, a big chunk of that went to Asheville and Boone. And they dispersed it around 11 counties, but the majority of a chunk of it went to the metropolitan areas. And then what's left, the scraps, these other counties get it. And their money runs out real quick when it's given to these cities like Asheville and Boone. So you got to be careful in what they're telling you and how everything, and I got a bunch of deer behind me, about 10 or 12 in the field. You got to be careful in what you hear from one side and what you hear from the other, and figure out what's actually been dispersed and who dispersed it and who's holding on to it. So, you got that scenario to play out, and it takes a whole lot. And then you've got this big shortfall that they set up, that North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resilience, that's lost over $300 million, and they still have yet been able to tell where any of it went. So what is that famous saying? You can't let a good disaster go to waste. Well, there you go, folks. So, folks, the news outlet says that the money delays pushed the counties to the brink. Now, they failed to mention that $737 million of Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha money was given to the illegals in that article in sanctuary cities, and also more benefits have been discovered, that nearly 60% of the SNAP benefits are currently going to illegals of people that are getting SNAP. The outlet also fails to mention that well over $300 million is missing from the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resilience, which helped rebuild, repair, and aid hurricane victims from the previous hurricanes dating back to 2016. Roy Cooper was governor and Josh Stein attorney general, and neither office have an answer on where the money's at. And once again, we're going to re-emphasize the phrase, where the old phrase is, you can't let a good disaster go to waste. Do you remember who coined that phrase? Yeah. Now, just think, the $300 million that's missing in North Carolina, the biggest North Carolina tax sham that's ever been, and the $637 million missing from Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha that went to the illegals, it could have taken care of 127,000 homes that was damaged or destroyed during the hurricane. This would have, with what they gave the illegals and the officials that embezzled or got frauded or whatever happened to the money, each damaged home in western North Carolina could have got $7,375 apiece, which is more than they got from any of their insurance companies, because 99% of them got nothing from insurance money, and most of them got nothing from FEMA at all. The $1.65 billion in the federal block grant money was awarded in January 2025, and the bulk of it went to Asheville, $225 million. And you remember that $750 payout everybody was going to get from guaranteed from Kamala Harris? Well, 99% of the people never got that. Disaster survivors applied multiple times for the Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha payouts of up to $42,500 per home, but most never received a dime. And why is that? Under the last administration, the money had kind of disappeared and was given to the illegals. And the employees of Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha never reached out to the areas outside of Asheville and Boone, and few other locations ever even saw or heard they were around that were in the remote locations. And they bypassed anybody with a Trump sign in their yard, if you remember that, and never returned any phone calls if they were calls made, and they required people to apply online, and most of these folks had no power and no internet, and the cell towers were down, and their phones were gone. So there was a catch-22. It was set up as a failure in the beginning to start with. Now, our request by Governor Stein was also to provide direct grants to businesses, $150 million that suffered significant sales and economic loss. Here, folks, is basically a bailout for businesses, while individuals have lost everything and get absolutely nothing. The North Carolina House bill that has omitted this off of Stein's request, which is basically a vote-buying sham, as locals see it for what it is. Stein pushed it as a way to prevent construction delays. Stop businesses from closing. Well, I guess you would if you paid them, give them a bailout like the governments give these banks time and time again. And then they said students are falling behind academically. Well, that's because they can't get back and forth to school because their transportation got washed away. They're living in substandard conditions. Many are having to wade across rivers and creeks to get to their homes. They still have no power. They're relying on propane tanks, 20-pound cylinders, and buddy heaters throughout the winter, and cooking on propane stoves to survive. Many are having to go to resource centers just to shower and wash clothes. So what did they expect on students falling academically behind? And you could get a Starlink, but I don't think they want to put the Starlink up and provide tablets for the students to be able to learn, because they say, well, there's transportation provided. But a lot of people that live way back up in the hollers, you can't just walk up and down the mountain and wade across the river in sub-freezing temperatures to get on the school bus soaking wet. So that doesn't happen either. So it's a catch-22, folks, on where this money's at, where it's going, who's getting it, and so forth. So as we see it, the folks that live back up in the hollers and back in the mountains are not getting anything other than what's provided by churches and nonprofits. And the old saying is, you can't let a good disaster go to waste. So unaccounted money from all the way back to 2016 in North Carolina, and all of this other money that's going out, and they're complaining about stuff being approved that's over $100,000. Wonder why that precedent is being set now to control where the money goes, and they're complaining about it being slow-walked out of Washington when they see what's already happened in the past.